What's up? Welcome back to episode 3 of Triple Dub, the podcast that fills the stat sheet with record setting info about the latest NBA news, trends, and predictions. Today, we have a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kezian.
Yeah, today we'll be having a fantasy draft just for the final 8 games starting July 31st, and all 4 are going to be a part of it using a snake format. But first, we're going to have our initial takes. Andy?
Thanks, Aki. So we're starting each episode with an initial take from each of us. And in this episode, we will discuss some of the breaking news that the NBA has seen in the past few weeks. So first, the NBA schedule was released. The 8 regular season games will take place between July 30th and August 14th, potentially followed by the 8 seed play-in tournaments on the 15th and 16th, and then the playoffs starting on the 17th with one round every 2 weeks. The NBA looks to open with some exciting games, with the Battle of LA, a key matchup between 7th and 8th seeds Nets and the Magic, the Grizzlies versus the Trailblazers, who are both fighting for the 8th seed, the Kings and the Spurs, who are both trying to get into the play-in tournament, and the Rockets versus the Mavericks, who are tied and fighting for seeding. All of these games will be within the first 2 days. The Pelicans are the winners of the schedule, as they are the only team with an opponent win percentage under 0.5, which should help them fight for an 8th or 9th place spot, whereas the Trailblazers are definitely the losers, facing only teams who have playoff spots and having to play the Celtics, Rockets, Nuggets, Clippers, and Sixers back-to-back.
That's really cool. Another really interesting thing which is happening is that there's going to be a bunch of players who will not make the decision to go to Orlando. There's several players who are going to be opting out, including but not limited to Avery Bradley and Willie Cauley-Stein for personal reason, and others such as Courtney Lee and Davis Bertans for free agency. Besides that, there are many players who decided to just get surgeries on injuries that were lingering so that they could avoid it. This comeback. This is including players such as Bojan Bogdanovic of the Utah Jazz, LaMarcus Aldridge of the fading San Antonio Spurs, and I guess you could count in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant of the Brooklyn Nets. Overall, this is poised to have a significant change on the overall structure of the return, but who knows? That makes the season ever more exciting.
Thanks. Now let's go on to my initial take. Now, I'm going to be talking about Kyrie Irving. In a Nets group chat, he recently proposed to create a new player-run league that is completely separate from the normal NBA. Apparently, this isn't the first time that he proposed this crazy new league, and the idea is quite ridiculous. Then again, it's coming from a guy that believes that the earth is flat. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I respect that opinion, but there have been some accusations that this was fake news, but it will still be interesting to see if this ludicrous idea of creating a new league can actually gain some traction.
Thank you, Rohan. Relating to Aki's take, there have been 16 players, which is 5.3% of the players who have agreed to come back and be part of this restart of the season, who will not be available currently due to illness. Those players include Malcolm Brogdon, Derek Jones Jr., Nikola Jokic, Jabari Parker, Alex Len, Christian Wood, and Buddy Hield, along with others. The NBA has come out and said recently that if a star player like LeBron James or Giannis or Kawhi were to be missing games due to illness during this restart and in the playoffs, games will not be postponed, and players inactive due to illness will be treated the same as any injury would at any other time. And with the games being played behind closed doors in Orlando, home court advantage obviously has changed quite a bit, and the NBA title odds have slightly altered since the NBA season stopped in March. The biggest jump is the Lakers jumping from 19% to 27%, according to 538 statistics. And that is partially due to the fact that in the last couple hours, they have just signed J.R. Smith. So as we're recording this, that number actually jumped from 24 to 27 this morning. The Clippers jumped from 25 to 26. The Bucks jumped from 18 to 20. The Sixers had a had a relatively large jump of 5%, mostly due to the fact that they are 10-24 on the road, and as all games are being played at a neutral site, home and road advantage isn't really existent. Rockets dropped from 15 to only 4%, and the Raptors dropped from 6 to 2%, largely due to the fact that they have less preseason time due to having to quarantine for 2 weeks as they're the only team from Canada. Next, we have our weekly trivia segment, and I am the host for this one. I will ask them 5 questions related to NBA fantasy worth 10 points each, and after 7 more episodes, the winner will make the loser do a forfeit. Just to remind everybody of the scores, Akhilesh is on 50, Andy has 30, and finally, Rohan has 10. All right. First question. Which of the following has allowed the most fantasy points per game in the NBA this season? Is it A, Hawks against shooting guards, Warriors against point guards, Spurs versus power forwards, or Hornets versus shooting guards? Andrew, what is your answer?
Complete guess, but I guess that it was the Warriors versus point guards, I believe.
That's actually incorrect. Aki, what is your answer?
It was a total guess also. I think it's the Hawks against shooting guards.
That is correct. Nice. So that is 10 points for Aki. All right. Which NBA player has had the highest scoring single fantasy game so far this season? Is it A, Trae Young, B, Damian Lillard, C, James Harden, or D, Giannis Antetokounmpo? Andy.
I put Damian Lillard. I think he put up some like 50-point games this season, so that's why I guessed him.
He did put up a over 50-point game, but that is not the correct answer, fortunately. Rohan, what is your answer?
Yeah, I also put B, so I'm gonna be wrong.
Yeah. Aki, what is your answer?
I don't know if his 60-point triple-double was this season or last season, but I assume that game would have garnered him a lot of points. Also, in the beginning of the season, he was averaging around 39 points a game, so I'm going to go with James Harden. C?
That is correct. Yes, that's 10 more points for Aki. Third question. Which non-All-Star has recorded the most minutes so far this season? Is it A, Bradley Beal, B, Fred VanVleet, C, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or D, Luke Kennard? Rohan, what is your answer?
This is an educated guess. It's not a complete guess, but I put A, Bradley Beal.
That is correct. It is Bradley Beal. Averaging over 38 minutes a game. Another one's kind of like the first question. Which of the following categories has allowed the fewest fantasy points per game? Is it A, Raptors versus centers, B, Suns versus small forwards, C, 76ers versus centers, or D, Nuggets versus power forwards? This is average fantasy points, not actual points. Rohan, has everyone submitted their answers? Yes. Rohan, what is your answer?
I put B, the Suns versus small forwards. This was a guess.
That is also correct. So that's another 10 points for Rohan. And this one's a little bit of a bizarre question. Which player has the most fantasy points per game this season while in their own defensive half of the court? So that counts for like steals that happen in their own side of the court, rebounds, assists if they throw a lob or all that.
Are there options?
Yes, there are options. A, Hassan Whiteside. B, Giannis Antetokounmpo. C, Joel Embiid. Or D, Andre Drummond. Aki, what is your answer?
I know he's been averaging like a ton of blocks this season, and he probably averaged like 1 or 1.5 steals. So I'll go with Hassan Whiteside. A.
That is incorrect. It is very close. Hassan Whiteside is averaging 23.44 fantasy points per game in his own side of the court. Andrew, what is your answer?
Yeah, I also put Hassan Whiteside, so unfortunately, no points for me.
Unfortunately not. And Rohan, what is your answer?
I put D, Andre Drummond, because I was thinking about putting B, but then I was probably going to be too late, so I just waited for a later answer.
Yes, that is actually correct. So that's 10 more points for Rohan. It's actually Andre Drummond has a 20th of a point more per game in his own side of the court than Hassan Whiteside. So extremely close there. So it's 30 points for Rohan, which moves him up the leaderboard, the standings, quite a bit. No points for Andrew, unfortunately, and Akilesh gets 20 to reinforce his lead and bring him up to 70 points.
As a brief disclaimer before we move on to the main segment of this video, I just wanted to let you all know that this video is filmed about a month ago, and because of that, a lot of new player news has occurred. So when you actually go to watch the main segment, you may notice that we draft a player that already got injured or a player that opted out of the bubble, and that would be the reason why. And if you want to see our live updated roster, you can find that in the description below as a Google spreadsheet. Furthermore, we also decided to do a draft for some bench players for this fantasy league, and you can find the results of that bench draft in that same spreadsheet in the description below. One last thing, I'm the editor for this video, and I decided to add some music for the main segment, so please drop a comment in the comment section below saying what you think about the music, and if we should have music in future videos. So anyways, enjoy the main segment.
Thanks for the trivia, Kez. Now for the main segment of this episode, we will be doing a fantasy draft for the final 8 games of the season. Because there is no real fantasy and we have to do it manually, we're going to simplify it a little bit. There are no subs in our fantasy thing, and once you draft your team, you're stuck with it for the rest of the season unless one of your players gets injured. Additionally, there are no fantasy games. Instead, there's just going to be a leaderboard, and whoever has the most points by the end of the season will win. The points will be based on normal NBA fantasy scoring, or at least something very similar to it. We are each required to have 1 player of each position and 3 util picks as well. I have the first pick, so I'm going to put 30 seconds of the clock, and time starts now. But this pick is really a no-brainer for me. There's 2 options. It's either Giannis or James Harden, and Giannis is on the Bucks, and the Bucks can probably go 0-10 or 0-8 or whatever in the tournament and still win. So I'm gonna have to go with James Harden because the Rockets are gonna have to try. Now let's move on to the next person.
Okay. It's a very simple pick. I still think that Giannis needs to get back in shape, and in the past couple months, James Harden hasn't looked that good, so I think that's a terrible pick. I'm going with Giannis. It's a steal at 2, in my opinion.
With the third pick, it's a little bit difficult because obviously there's the top 2 top tier players, which are obviously both off the board now. I think I'm going to have to go with Anthony Davis. I know the Lakers are sitting pretty well in the West, but Anthony Davis is at least a top 5 player in the NBA, so to be able to get him at 3rd position, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to take Anthony Davis with the 3rd pick.
All right, so I'm not sure if this pick that I'm going to make is the kind of the best pick in terms of value, but I think that he's just a tier above the rest of the players in his position. So I'm going for Luka Doncic for my small forward spot. And then for the, because I have the back-to-back, I'm going to go for Kawhi Leonard as my next pick also for shooting guard.
With my pick, my second round pick, maybe not the smartest idea, but I am very loyal, so I got to take my boy Pascal Siakam. Got to make sure I get him on my team.
All right. With my 7th pick, I'm surprised this guy has slipped so far. I'm taking LeBron James.
This pick's a little difficult because most of the top tier players, well, there's still a lot available, but it's kind of like a jumble now. But I think I'm gonna have to go with Damian Lillard because he's just such a good scorer.
You also have the next pick wrong.
Oh yeah, okay. This is gonna be a tough one. I'm gonna have to go with. I don't want to pick another shooting guard or point guard, but if I pick any other position, I'm gonna. This is difficult. I think I'm gonna go with Bradley Beal. Now I have a lot of guards, but he just scores so well.
Okay. With my next pick, I have a small forward and a power forward. It's also it's quite important to get good guards in the center. Both. I think there's a couple of guards which I think I can wait on a bit, so I'll go for a center. I will go. I'll go with Bam Adebayo.
Player that kind of fills a need. I don't feel like there's too many top quality centers on the board. Potentially a stupid pick, but I'm going to go with Joel Embiid.
All right, it looks like centers are going by pretty quickly, so I might have to take one here, or maybe not, I'll see. But I have 2 picks. So the first one I know that I want is going to be point guard Russell Westbrook. He scores so much, and he's kind of a stat stuffer, I guess, so he's really good for fantasy formats. And then I kind of have a 1, a 2, and a 3 already, so I'm going to be looking to get a power forward or center. Now, Nikola Jokic is an option, but it's not really clear whether he will actually play. But I think that's a risk I'm willing to take for just such a good center, so I'm going to go with Nikola Jokic here.
All right, with my 4th round selection, I'm going to select a player that has received his fair share of hate throughout, with NBA fans, but I believe the talent is there. His team does still have stuff to play for. I'm going to take Ben Simmons, and I'm surprised he slid down this far.
Okay, I desperately need guards right now. Dame's off the board. Luka's off the board. I can't take Trey. Is there any other good point guard which I can take? All right, I'm gonna go. Bradley Beal has been taken. I'm gonna go with Devin Booker.
I'm really gonna need a forward here, and just looking at the list of forwards available, I see Paul George available. That's a potential option. I also see Brandon Ingram. But based on the list, there are a lot more small forwards available than power forwards. So I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and pick Domantas Sabonis. Probably butchered his name, but yeah.
Okay. I need a point guard, and I'm looking at ESPN. It says that this player's secondary position is a point guard, which by normal fantasy rules would mean I can put him as a point guard spot. I'm going to take Donovan Mitchell.
Wait, is Paul George a shooting guard or a forward? I thought he was a forward.
He's both shooting guard and small forward, so
Okay,
secondary position is small forward.
All right, with my selection, like my previous selection, it says that Ben Simmons is listed as the point guard, so he fills my point guard spot. I still need a shooting guard, and one of his positions listed is shooting guard. I'm gonna take Jimmy Butler.
All right, so with my pick, the last specific position I need is power forward, and I think there's kind of a clear best one here. Maybe there's an argument for Kristaps Porzingis or even Zion Williamson. I'm going for Jason Tatum for my power forward spot. And then I can basically go anywhere with this next pick because I already have one of each. I think that like in fantasy format, centers tend to be pretty good. So I'm gonna make maybe not the best pick, but I'm gonna take Nikola Vucevic.
He took my player right there. It's a little bit frustrating. I'm a little bit stuck here with my next selection. This team was still something to play for, I guess. So it's very much of a risk. I'm gonna take DeMar DeRozan.
That's a good pick. Both I was looking at Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis. Sorry, not Kristaps Porzingis. I was saying Jason Tatum and DeMar DeRozan. But according to ESPN, this player can play the power forward. So for the forward slot on my bench, I will take the person who I accidentally said already, Kristaps Porzingis.
Okay, so now for my pick, I'm really just looking for any good scorers because I already have my 5 major positions filled. And looking down the list, I have some pretty solid options. I believe I have, I'm looking at the guards in particular right now. But actually looking at the center list, I see Deandre Ayton. And he seems like a very good pick right now. I know he's injured, but I think he's a really good player. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Deandre Ayton. Yeah, I have all the player positions filled now that I took Deandre Ayton. I actually took Paul George and I didn't take a center earlier on, just to clarify that. And now I just need a utility player to just help me score more points. And I have my eye on... Actually, no, I don't have an eye on anyone yet. I'm still looking at the list of players. Oh my god, they're all so good. I really don't know who to take. But I think I'm leaning a little bit towards Chris Paul. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Chris Paul. It's my next pick.
That's a very good pickup. For my guard spot, I'm going to take Giannis's teammate, Chris Middleton. He's been having a good season, and his secondary position is a shooting guard.
Well, with my pick, it's a little bit confusing because I thought Hassan Whiteside was off the board, but apparently he's not off the board, so I'm going to go and take Hassan Whiteside now.
All right, and now I have my back-to-back picks. I'm probably going to be looking to fill the guard and forward positions. I don't know why I couldn't think there. For guards, I'm thinking Drew Holiday is an option. Kyle Lowry is an option. Even maybe CJ McCollum. But I'm actually going to go for maybe a potentially weird one. I'm going to go for De'Aaron Fox here. I just think that he'll be very good after coming back. And then for my forward position, I'm going to go for Brandon Ingram at small forward.
With my 8th round selection, I'm going to go ahead and return to the theme of my 2nd round selection, being loyal. I'm going to take Kyle Lowry, even if that's not the smartest selection.
Okay, that's a good pick. So I can choose basically anybody right now, and I'm gonna go with a person who I feel like he has, even though he isn't the main person on his team anymore, he definitely will have a couple of really good games in my opinion. I'll go with Kemba Walker.
Now this pick's a little bit difficult for me because I'm really debating between Zion or a more consistent player. Zion's sort of a wild card because I know he's played very well recently, but he's a little bit risky because, as we know, he's a rookie and he's coming off an injury. And right now I'm looking at my big board and I have quite a few players that are available that are still pretty good. But I think I'm gonna take a risk and take Zion Williamson. It's just a utility player, whatever. Okay, now I think I have another utility pick. I can really go for anyone. And I'm just gonna take a good glance at my big board. There are quite a few good players available. This is gonna be a tough decision. Ooh. Has anyone taken Drew Holiday yet? Okay, no one has. I think I'm gonna go ahead and select Drew Holiday.
Okay, that's a good pick. I don't know how controversial this pick is, but the man who may or may not have indirectly caused this whole situation, I'll pick Rudy Gobert.
That was probably going to be my pick, so I'm gonna have to switch it up a little bit now. Very risky one. He's been in the news for some of the wrong reasons over the last couple days. I'm gonna go ahead and take Ja Morant.
Now I have my final 2 picks. I'm just going to take the best 2 players who I think are available. One player who is available is the ex-Knick Latvian power forward, Kristaps Porzingis.
I took Porzingis already.
Wait, did you? Oh,
Yep.
Okay, never mind. Then I will go ahead and take... let's see. I'll go for CJ McCollum with one of my picks. And then for the other one, I think the best player might be Let's see. I'll go for Spencer Dinwiddie, actually.
My next pick, I'm just making sure that he is in fact returning to play in this this last part of the season. I can't find any information on it, so it might be a very stupid selection. I'm gonna go ahead and take Jamal Murray.
Wow, you only made 2 Raptors picks? Shame.
Well, I'm not gonna go ahead and take Serge Ibaka or Fred VanVleet when it's only 40 players.
All right. Okay. So
I'm not that stupid.
all right. So my last pick, I have a couple of players in mind. I'm debating between Tobias Harris, Brandon Ingram, or this player. I'm not gonna go with Brandon Ingram.
I think someone
I'm not
already
gonna
took
go
him
with Tobias
anyways.
Harris. I'll go with one of the most underrated stat patterns in the league, teammate of John Morant, Jonas Valanciunas. It's my last pick anyways.
So that's a good pick right there.
Now I have the very last pick, and I'm just debating between a couple players. I'm debating between Jonathan Isaac, which is a little bit questionable, but I think he's sort of a wild card like Zion, or Robert Covington, or there's even CJ McCollum. Those are the main, and Jaylen Brown as well. Oh, I'm really leaning towards Jaylen Brown since he's a little bit less of a risk. But I think Tobias Harris is also good. I think I'm gonna have to go with Jaylen Brown here.
All right, and with that, our fantasy draft has concluded. We're gonna just name a few players, which you might be wondering, wait, why are they not there? Which are legitimate questions. So there's definitely a lot of players who did very well during the regular season who aren't on our list.
Should we each list a couple players who we had our eyes on that we didn't select?
Yeah, sure. For me, I'll go with players such as Tobias Harris, Montrezl Harrell, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I guess I'll go next. I was also looking at all 3 of those players, but I was also thinking maybe Kevin Love was an option. Kelly Oubre was actually an option, although I'm not
Kevin
sure
Love's
if he's
not an
actually.
option.
Huh?
The Cavs aren't coming back.
Oh wait, yeah, never mind. Don't mind me. Is Danilo Gallinari coming back? I think maybe. Yeah, I think he was an option for me. Dennis Schroeder maybe. I don't know. There's just a few of them.
For me, there are quite a few players. I'm a little sad that I couldn't pick. I think Aki already mentioned Tobias Harris. I also had my eyes on Kelly Oubre Jr. Eric Bledsoe is also a potential option. I think there are a lot of good scores that we missed out on. Oh, even Gordon Hayward too. I mean, there are only 10 picks per person, so can't get everyone.
2 players which might kind of be out of the ordinary zone of players you would expect to pick that I had my eye on. I had my eye on Lou Williams is one of them, and I also had my eye on Marc Gasol, but I'm not sure if that's just loyalty bias right there. The third player I also was like eyeing up a little bit. Dario Saric of the Phoenix Suns. I don't know. That would have been an outside pick. That's why I didn't take the risk of that. But that's just another player I was looking at.
All right. Leave in the comments what you predict is going to happen and which team you think looks the best on paper.
So
we'll see if you guys are right.
All right, we'll leave the spreadsheet in the description. You can see all the teams, and we'll be updating the scores live so you can see who is winning. Yeah, basically.
Wow, that was stressful. That was a very good draft, I think, for all of us. And now is our last segment. It's our hot take segment where we each make a controversial prediction about the performance of one of the players that we selected in our fantasy draft. Kez, you want to go first?
Yes. In my second round, I took Pascal Siakam over players like LeBron James and Damian Lillard, which might have seemed surprising to some people. Apart from me being a Raptors fan and wanting to take my boy Pascal so no one else could have him, I also feel like he's going to have a very good end to the season and the playoffs. Since the All-Star break, he's been averaging like 24, 25 points a game. And that includes a 37-point performance, a 33-point performance, and a 35-point performance just in the last 10 games. And I feel like since the All-Star game, he's been getting similar minutes that he has all season long. But I just feel like just watching him, he's been performing a lot better, and I'm really confident with him going into the playoffs in the last part of the regular season. That I just thought he was a really good pick to take just because he's hitting stride at the right point of the season, and I don't feel that same way about players like LeBron. And Damian Lillard's questionable, but I just thought I might as well go with Pascal just because I like the trajectory that he's going with.
With the third round selection I took Bam Adebayo over centers such as Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic. I think that it was a very defensible selection because, one, Nikola Jokic is currently ill, and we don't know how well he'll do if he comes back. And Joel Embiid, he is very inconsistent, and he always needs to be motivated. I think there's a lot of tension in the Philadelphia locker room. There have been many games where he has done very poorly. He shot way too many threes. He's missed too many shots. But when I look at Bam, I see a guy who consistently will average around 17 and 11, and he averages 5 or 6 assists a game. He gets over a steal, over a block, and shoots at least 60% from the field. And he doesn't take too many free throws. I don't think there's a lot of places for him to lose points, and he should fill up the stat sheet, even though he isn't the best scoring big man.
Now for my hot take, I'm going to talk about why I chose Domantas Sabonis over Jason Tatum. And this was definitely a hot take because Jason Tatum has been performing very well for the last few months. And I think that's actually one of the main problems. I think Jason Tatum, he's not as consistent because he started very slow during the regular season, during the beginning months. And I feel like that may translate over into the play-in tournament. But even then, if you look at their overall stats, you see that Domantas Sabonis has 19 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and Tatum averages 23, 7, and 3. And if you add up Sabonis' stats, they're actually a little bit more than Tatum's. And another thing to take into account is how the Pacers don't really have that much talent around them. I think the Pacers only really have Victor Oladipo as another major scorer, and that could be an issue. That could be something that helps Sabonis. While the Celtics have so many good players like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, as I said before, Kemba Walker, I feel like Sabonis will have more of a moment to shine and play more minutes and just play better.
All right, so I have the final hot take, and I'm going to be talking about why I took De'Aaron Fox over other guard options such as Kyle Lowry, Kemba Walker, and Drew Holiday. So I know a lot of people are going to talk about how players that are in maybe 10th, 11th, 12th seeds don't have the motivation to play, but a playoff spot is not incredibly out of reach for the Kings. The Trailblazers have a very difficult schedule going into the bubble, and the Suns have lost Kelly Oubre Jr. and the Spurs lost LaMarcus Aldridge. So your main competition here is just going to be this very young and somewhat inconsistent Pelicans team, and I think that the Kings are going to take the bubble very seriously, and De'Aaron Fox's stats are going to be very good. And you look at his stats just before the NBA shut down, he was averaging 24 points, shooting over 50%. He had 4 rebounds and 6 assists, and only 2 turnovers a game. I think if he can carry those numbers into the bubble, then he could be a huge threat both in real life and in fantasy. All right, so that wraps it up for our third episode of Triple W. Remember that we'll leave in the comments or the description a spreadsheet so you can see how each of our teams are doing. If you liked this podcast, make sure to like it. And if you didn't, tell us why in the comments so we can change that in the future. This is the guys from Triple Dub signing off. See ya.